Uh, the internet, man. The internet is a harsh, unreasonable at times, just kind of toxic place, truthfully. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Raj Talks Games. And today we had a Nintendo Direct partner showcase, which I'll tell you, it's getting a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate on this Direct. A lot of people say, "Oh, this is it was garbage. There was nothing good here. Like, why did this exist? This entire Direct could have been an email, or as my buddy Justin would say, that could have been a tweet." I don't necessarily disagree about some of that, but there were some big announcements. So, like, I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, as Cappy is playing with the scratchy thing, was it really that bad, or is the internet just being the internet here, and hating on this Direct for more reason than they probably should? So, I talked a little bit with my buddy Monado Max. Shout out Max over at, you can find a channel at Monado Max. And, he called it a 4 out of 10. Like, he was really down on this thing. But let me tell you why I think this is getting a lot of unwarranted hate, like, overall. So, first of all, there was some good stuff here. There genuinely were some good-looking games here. They opened up with a brand new Monster Hunter Stories game, which, we didn't know about that. That was very unexpected. We closed with 2 brand new Square Enix games. One's a new IP, for that matter, which we didn't know about. And there was a lot of good stuff, like, sandwiched in between there, as far as, like, new games for the Switch 2 that were previously unannounced. Like, people went into this thinking, okay, this is going to be a Direct full of ports. If we're going to get updates on this and this and this and this, this is a sure thing, this is a sure thing. Well, guess what? None of those sure things were there today. Like, we didn't see a single sure thing. The only sure thing we've actually seen today is Turbo trying to knock over the tripod, which is a sure thing here on Raj Talks Games, as per usual. So, yeah, I like this Direct, personally. I think a 4 out of 10 on that's very harsh. I truthfully, like, I'd even give it a 6, probably. There was a lot of things I want to talk about that look really good. But, first of all, I think the biggest point I want to get at here is this. Number one, this is a partner showcase. We knew we weren't going to see Metroid Prime 4 or any big first-party announcements. Now, granted, we all had our expectations. Like, we expected to see Xbox. We expected to see Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated. We expected to see Elden Ring, because these are games that we know are coming. But we didn't see any of those, and I think that's a good thing, for multiple reasons. The first of which being, this, in my opinion, along with the fact that it was not first-party focused in any way, is just further confirmation that we are still getting a full-on traditional September Nintendo Direct. We get a September Nintendo Direct every year. It's the perfect time to start marketing your big push for the holidays, and you know that they're going to want to include things like Elden Ring, like Final Fantasy VII, like a potential Call of Duty release, like whatever Xbox has up their sleeve for the holidays. All of that stuff, they're going to want to start that holiday push in September, along with, your titles that we know we're getting for the rest of the year from Nintendo, such as Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, such as Kirby Air Riders, such as potentially, I guess there's been some rumors that Splatoon Raiders is actually going to release in 2025. There was also, still people who believe that Hyrule Warriors, whatever the new Hyrule Warriors game's called, sorry guys, I don't quite know the subtitle of that game. Everybody's, still saying it's coming out in 2025, and for the most part, I don't think those things are wrong. To me, the fact that, one, they still haven't dated Hyrule Warriors, and for 2, which, by the way, Hyrule Warriors was there. It is a third-party game. It is a Bandai Namco being the developer of this. Sorry, not Bandai Namco. Koei Tecmo being the developers here. It's a third-party Zelda game, technically. The fact that they're still kind of drilling home this is a holiday, or this is a winter game. They haven't said winter 25. They have not said holiday. I think that's going to be a 2026 game. Kirby Air Riders apparently got rated in Saudi Arabia today, so I think that's definitely still coming in 2025. But let's get back to today's actual presentation and cat noises. So I don't see the big complaints here. Mind you, there were some low points. Let's talk about the low points first. First of all, I want to talk about Star Wars Outlaws. And this game, to me, like, this just reeks of unoptimized port. You know, we haven't seen any exploration around the planets. We haven't really seen anything much of gameplay aside from what little they showed today and what little they showed previously when they announced it. There is something very wrong with that game. And I'm not talking about the fact that it's already pretty much a mediocre, 6 out of 10 at best title. I have played a few hours of Star Wars Outlaws on the PlayStation 5 Pro, but let's be real, that thing didn't run the best on the PlayStation 5, and now we're going to put it on the Switch 2, which is not as powerful of hardware as the PlayStation 5. And it's not a great game to begin with. I'm just going to put it out there. I have a feeling this is going to come out a hot mess, like probably the first real hot mess that we've seen on the Switch 2. It's probably going to be the lowest reviewed game to date when it launches on the system. So, guys, I'm just asking you, if you really want to play that game, get it somewhere else. But that's beside the point. I'm a little concerned about Madden. Madden didn't look fantastic. Especially, again, in comparison to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox. I just think Madden graphically looked a little noticeably weaker in what we saw today. Now, I want to see more of that before I make a decision as to whether or not I would want to buy that game. And then, there were some just really strange announcements that didn't make sense to me. I just want to, first off, point out the fact that we've got a brand new Katamari game that was announced, which is great. I'm not a big Katamari guy, but fans of the series have been just rambling, just foaming at the mouth for a new Katamari game, not a port, for a long time now. And it's a little strange that it's getting a Switch 1 release, but not a Switch 2 release. Especially when we know, Bandai Namco, they have dev kits for the Switch 2. They had received those prior to. We know this. So it's a little odd that there's not a Switch 2 version of that at launch. And then there's some weird game about sitting around a campfire for $20 that's a Switch 2 exclusive and it supports the camera. And it's just why does this need to exist? But, enough about the negatives. Let's talk about some really positive things about this presentation. So first off, like I said, Monster Hunter Stories 3, I'm not a big Monster Hunter fan. I have even less experience with the Monster Hunter Stories games. That said, this looks cool. It looks like it's got a nice budget. It's definitely a step forward graphically from the previous two games. It looks like they've gone a little more towards the realism. I guess realism's a poor choice of words there for a Monster Hunter game, but the more moving more toward more realistic graphics. We also had a number of things. One thing I'm most excited about, Romancing Saga 2 is getting a Switch 2 upgrade. The upgrade is $10 if you don't, or rather, if you already own the game, you can upgrade it for $10 for a Switch 2 version, which looks really pretty close to the PS5 version in terms of graphic fidelity and performance. So that's really cool. I'm pretty glad now that I held off on playing that game. I got it when it came out last year, but I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. So it gives me an excuse to go to that. Persona 3 Reload, that's huge. That's in October. That's coming soon. There was a lot of chatter. This was probably the one thing that, a lot of people really thought we were going to see that was going to be a shoo-in that we actually saw. Now, there was some debate there toward the last week or so. Okay, are we actually going to see Persona 3 Reload, or are they going to hold off on that and give us Metaphor instead? I think Persona 3 Reload makes a little more sense here, just simply because Persona already has that fan base on the Switch 2. So I think it's an out of the gate, possibly a better seller than Metaphor. Even though I've not beat either of them, but personally, from what I've played of those two games, like Metaphor to me is the better game. And like Persona 3 for me, I don't like it as much as 4 and 5, but there's a big audience that really would want that game, so I think that's a good decision. Another surprise for me was, this is a game like, I think a lot of us thought we would see Dragon Ball Sparking Zero today, which we did, and that's coming out in November. Switch 2 version, but that's not a surprise. There's a Switch 1 version of the game. I can't imagine that's going to be super great running on the regular Nintendo Switch, but I do want to point out that game is going to be $59.99 on the Switch 2. That is $10 cheaper than it is on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox, which is very unusual. Typically, we get that Switch tax when a game releases on the Switch. For example, even though Persona 3 has been out for well over a year and a half, almost a year and a half now, actually, and by the time it launches on the Switch 2, it's going to be closer to 2 years since it came out on the PlayStation 5. That's going to be full $79.99. It doesn't even include the DLC. You still have to pay $19.99 additionally for Episoditis. And it's a little off-putting to me. Now, I don't know that I'm going to purchase this for the Switch 2 anyways. I have it both physically and digitally already on the PlayStation 5. I've already put about 30 hours into it. I don't know that I'm looking to restart that on the Switch. So, it's not something that I'm necessarily worried about because I'm not paying for it, but I'm glad that a lot of people are going to get to experience that. We got another trailer for Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, and I'm even more excited for that game than I already was. What really struck me, though, was, if I remember, that was originally confirmed to be a code in the box, but if you were watching the Direct, it specifically said that Switch 2 was getting a physical and digital version. So I don't think they would use that wording if it wasn't going to be at least a game key card, which is another thing about this Direct. This was the Nintendo Direct game key card showcase, because I'm pretty sure that literally everything we saw today is releasing on a game key card, or maybe even just a code in a box, or maybe even digital only. We've already had several confirmations. Persona 5 is going to be a game key card. Dragon Ball Z, game key card. Pac-Man World 2 Repack, Pac-Man World Repack 2 is confirmed to be on a game key card. So we already know that these titles are releasing in that format. One of the big new announcements at the end of the showcase, the game they closed on, Octopath Traveler 0, prequel to the series, which, by the way, I'm not the biggest fan of Octopath. The story's a little disjointed for my liking, but they're still really good games. That's a game key card. We can assume that, I think it's called Elliot Adventure or Elliot Quest, is probably going to be on a game key card. So, I personally, I'm not super down on game key cards. I'm fine with it. I would rather have a game key card than not get a physical release. In fact, I've gotten to the point now where, I'd rather have a code in a box than just a straight-up digital release. Because at least I have the box on my shelf now to look cool and be like, oh yeah, I have that game. For me, the biggest highlight was Elliot Quest, I believe the game was called, which I just mentioned. Brand new action RPG IP from Square Enix. The demo is available right now. I have downloaded it. I have not played it. Just fair warning, Turbo is at the tripod sitting, so he may choose to try to push that a little bit again. We'll see. The game kind of gives me Ys vibes, but Square Enix. I love Ys. That's one of my favorite series, so I'm going to be trying that out in a little bit. And they also released a Shinobi demo, which I'm going to be trying in a bit as well. So really, as far as the biggest announcements, I think I've pretty much covered the big stuff. They showed more of the games we knew were coming. They showed FIFA. They showed Borderlands 4. They showed a little sizzle reel for Shinobi. These are games that we've already known about. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to. And I think that this is getting a lot of undeserved hate. It wasn't really that bad of a direct. Even as far as partner directs are concerned, compared to other partner showcase directs, I thought it was solid, good compared to some of the other ones of those. It was on par, if not better. So, what do you guys think about today's Nintendo Direct presentation? Were there any games that you plan on picking up out of that Direct? Have you downloaded the Elliot Quest demo or the Shinobi demo? There's been a couple Shadow drops today as well that you can check out. Have you checked any of those out? So let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this today. Please like and subscribe. Today is the last day of July, and I am still trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of July. 14 left. Guys, make it happen. We can do it. To my subscribers, I appreciate you as always. And until next time, guys, we'll see ya.